The panel includes team leaders and clinicians from each of the 3 SAMHSA DMHAS-funded first episode psychosis clinics in New Jersey. We have representatives from CarePlus, from Rutgers UBHC, and Oaks Integrated. Each clinic has now treated several young people, multiple people from ages 15 to 35, and has worked with their families to promote recovery and a return to work, school, and social roles. So the panel is going to present an overview of the needs of people who are recovering from a first episode of psychosis. It's being led by Dr. Steve Silverstein, who's very familiar to many of the NAMI membership in the audience over here. He's been a huge supporter of NAMI, and we're really glad to welcome Dr. Silverstein and the panelists here today.
Thank you, Aruna. Well, look at this. I guess I'm done. That was fast. Okay, so where were we? Before we do anything, I want to just follow up from the last presentation and say that nothing that any of us would be saying would be possible without state funding from the Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services. What happened is that all the funding for the 3 first episode psychosis treatment clinics in New Jersey comes from part of the state mental health block grant. They come from 3 separate, it's divided up into 3 separate grants, plus some of the funding is used for training for everybody. And we've gotten a lot of good support from people at the state, Young Ching's here, and Donna Migliorino, and of course the higher ups who we heard from before, Valerie, and now Carolyn, I guess, with the new integrated system. So anyway, just want to let people know that's where the funding for all this is coming from. This all started about a year ago. So what you're going to hear today is a kind of an update on what's happening. Basically, after much evidence from around the world, and then including eventually in this country, it was really mandated that every state in the country use a percentage of their state mental health block grant to establish clinics for treating young people with recovering from a first episode of psychosis using a very specific treatment model that you'll hear about, and that's sometimes called the RAISE model. And that RAISE is an acronym. It stands for Recovery After an Initial Schizophrenia Episode. So all of us, all the different clinics, use the same basic model, but of course there are slight differences here and there. The 3 clinics that were awarded the funding, and this was a competitive process, were CarePlus, Rutgers University Behavioral Health Care, or UBHC, in the central part of New Jersey, with CarePlus in the northern part of New Jersey, and then Oaks Integrated Care in the southern part of New Jersey. So the idea at the state level was these clinics should be accessible to people wherever you are. So I'd like to just give an overview for a few minutes, and then we're going to hear from people, essentially the people who are running each of these programs. The main thing I want to emphasize here is that without clinics like this, outcomes for people after a first episode of psychosis often aren't good. Yes, you can find studies in the literature that make it seem like they're good. For example, 80–90% of people with the first episode of psychosis can achieve symptom remission within the first year. But very few people stay well with treatment as usual, right? So for example, this is from a very good study from UCLA, one of the first places that had one of these clinics, that the rate of people who recovering after the hospital in the first year, recovering from the first psychotic episode, not who achieved symptom remission, but who stayed symptom-free. It's very different. For at least 6 months, it was only 36% stayed symptom-free for 6 months out of 12 months, and the rate of what was called in this project recovery, meaning symptom-free or almost symptom-free, and doing what the person was normally doing, going to school or working, whatever, both, was only 10% within 6 months. And when they looked at over 1 year, so the other figures were for a 6-month period in that first year, but for people, the rate of people who stayed well over 12 months was only 22% in terms of being symptom-free, and only 1% of people who for 12 months were able to work or be a student without some major interruption of symptoms. Now, much of this is because people don't like the medications. Often people are not prescribed medication correctly, or people use street drugs or other things, or they're subject to a lot of stress. There's all kinds of issues. But the point is, the typical model of, well, you see a psychiatrist once a month and you're lucky if you can find a therapist or whatever, that is not enough for this young population. And if we're going to try to prevent people from having a chronic course of disability, then a lot more is needed. So, I do have more slides. All right. Yes, so a very influential person in this field is Patrick McGorry, who's in Melbourne, Australia. And he's written some really great research studies, but also some very powerful commentaries, where, for example, he says that really much of the poor outcomes, the 1% achieving recovery or whatever, it's not that it's inevitable with people who have a psychotic disorder. In fact, it's not inevitable at all. A lot of it is because people are often symptomatic and really could use treatment for a long time before anyone gets them into treatment, right? And I've seen people, in fact, the average duration of untreated psychosis is averaging about 1.5 years, still, to this day. You wonder, what's going on? Who's not noticing that somebody is psychotic, or maybe the person doesn't want to go into treatment, so there are a lot of issues here. So very late detection, and we know that the earlier we find somebody and get them into treatment, the better the outcome's going to be. Also, pharmacotherapy, you cannot treat an 18-year-old having their first psychotic episode the way you might treat a 50-year-old person who's had, 20 hospitalizations. You just can't. It doesn't work. And no one at 18 years old is going to stay on medication and keep going back for treatment like that. Also, the availability of services that we know are very important, like individual therapy, peer support, supported employment, supported education, family work. Let's face it, it's not like it's easy to find these things. So, but we know that when they're used together, the outcomes can actually be pretty good. So, a lot of work was done over the last 20 years, really all over the world. In fact, the United States was kind of late getting to it, showing, well, what does work for this population? Well, generally, low doses of antipsychotic medication, with often people who do well for 6 to 12 months, going even lower, sometimes going off altogether. So again, very low doses. Cognitive behavior therapy, focused on not only controlling psychotic symptoms, but also dealing with depression and a lot of the self-esteem issues that you find in people young people who are barely have an adult identity, whose lives have been completely disrupted. There are a lot of issues to deal with besides, you taking your medication. Again, family education and support, education and vocational rehabilitation, especially supported education and deployment. Again, where people are being helped to remove obstacles or deal with the obstacles or challenges they have to meeting the goals that they have, right? Cognitive remediation is often very helpful as well as part of supported education and employment, helping people achieve maximum functioning in their attention span and memory so they can do the best they can at work. And then providing, having availability for these services for up to several years. Not like in a lot of the studies where they give great treatment for 3 months and then they show, well, 2 years later, the outcomes aren't so good anymore. Well, of course, that's true for anything. Some things need more than 3 months of treatment. So this is what seems to work. This is what was tried in this country and called the RAISE model, and the results were good, and that's what led to then this mandate for all 50 states that state mental health block grant dollars have to be used to set up these clinics. Each of these clinics has several key roles. Sometimes the a person will have more than one roles on the team. Usually the teams have some director. In Rutgers' case, it's me. My role seems to be to fight with the hospital administration constantly to make sure we get things like our phone number on the website and paper and other resources that we need. So pretty soon we'll even have a wireless internet connection in our office. Then we have a team leader, Alyson. Hague, you'll hear from her soon, who really is kind of supervising the whole team and coordinating all the activities. It's a massive job. We have a part-time psychiatrist on the team, several people who basically provide individual therapy, for the most part following a manualized cognitive, behavioral, and problem-solving type method. An excellent family therapist, I believe she's over here, Terry Greiner. Supported education and employment specialists, peer support specialist. We also have a part-time substance abuse counselor who's one of our individual therapists, so we kind of get 2 for 1 there. And then other. What's other? Well, we have a medical student who helps out, who's got a family member with schizophrenia who helps out with our family group. And so a psychology intern, some students, etc. I'm going to just finish up by saying there's much evidence now that these clinics are effective. Outcomes are much better. Much higher rates of people going back to school and work, being symptom-free. What might surprise people is that when you use these programs, you can treat people and have better outcomes at 1/3 the cost of the usual treatment. Why? It's not that you're not paying the staff enough, although that's debatable, but the real reason is that you're keeping people out of the hospital and away from costly services. So I need to get off, but let me just have one last slide, which is it is possible to get much better outcomes than we've seen in the past for first episode psychosis. And these programs tend to work very well with families, keep people in treatment, and get them back to where they want to be. The problem is they're generally unavailable, and that's why such a big effort's being made nationwide, including New Jersey here, to make these clinics available. You have to assume that people are going to be ambivalent about treatment, and so one of the main issues that comes up is that even though people are not going to want all the treatments you have available, you still have to try to find a way to work with them, and it's okay that people may not take all your recommendations. You still want to have a welcoming, non-stigmatizing environment. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alyson Hague, the team leader from Rutgers, who will describe that program, and then we'll hear from Oaks and Care Plus.
Good morning. So Dr. Silverstein explained our team. I'm going to skip past that since we're already running a little behind. That was our brochure. The counties. You talk too much. Rutgers is serving the central part of New Jersey, Somerset, Middlesex, Mercer, Monmouth, and Ocean counties. So Rutgers started seeing consumers in February of 2017. So we have about 9 months that we've been actively treating consumers and their families. We've had about 75 referrals to date, 39 intakes and admissions. The difference between those numbers is that oftentimes we have referrals for consumers that don't meet the diagnostic criteria or have had symptoms longer than 2 years. Those seem to be the main reasons that they wouldn't meet criteria for the program. We've had 7 discharges and 1 readmit. Currently, we have 32 consumers participating in services in our program. 27 are male, 5 females. The age range is 15 to 35, average age 22, 4 are under the age of 18. 9 are in college, 4 are in high school, and 9 are employed as well. 55% of our consumers have had their families participate in either family therapy and or a family psychoeducation group. 65% of our consumers are using the supported employment and education services, and 75% are using the peer support specialist. 94% of our consumers are taking prescribed medications. One of the features that's a little bit different in the Rutgers program that we started, some of the other agencies may have started as well, as a psychoeducation support group for families. We've been running it once a quarter, and it has been very well received by families. We initially opened it up that it could be for consumers and families, and it just naturally has evolved into being just for the families. It's giving them an opportunity to engage with other families, share experiences, support each other, and it has been widely successful. In addition, we have a consumer group about ready to start. Again, consumers are kind of asking for it, and also we have consumers at different stages in their treatment. So some of our consumers that came in early in the program, earlier in the year, are more stable right now. They're working, they're going to school. They can give hope to some of our consumers that are coming in. So we're hoping to get that going later this month. In addition, at Rutgers, we have our consumers with a unique opportunity to participate in a research study with the Department of Exercise and Exercise Physiology. So we have currently 6 consumers that are enrolled in this research study. It is a 3-month study. They get a complete assessment, and they are getting personal training 3 times a week on the Rutgers campus. So they are really enjoying that. It's a cool opportunity. We're looking forward to seeing the outcomes of that. In addition, we have psychology interns as part of the Rutgers team, so they are doing assessments for clients and their families. So each of the agencies had decided today we would focus on one specific area of treatment. So Rutgers is going to talk a little bit about the individual and family therapy. The model is a manualized treatment broken down into specific modules. There are modules for the individual therapy and family therapy. Pretty much all of the consumers start out going through the orientation and assessment, initial goal setting. Really, this is consumer-driven treatment. What is it that the consumer is hoping to get back on track with in their life? What are their goals? And we try to make the treatments around them, supporting them being able to achieve their goals. There's a lot of psychoeducation ongoing throughout the course. Sometimes you have to go back to psychoed and really re-explain the illness and symptom management, relapse prevention, goal setting, and developing resiliency. All of those modules are part of the manualized treatment, and what we found is not everything works for every consumer, so some of it is picking and choosing really to support the consumer's goals. Almost all of our consumers are dealing with negative feelings, so depression, sadness, anxiety. We are working with a lot of coping skills. In addition, coping with the symptoms of psychosis, hallucinations, paranoia, comorbid substance use. So interesting about the program is that is not an exclusionary criteria to be in the program. They can have substance use issues ongoing, and we'll work with that. Having fun and developing relationships. So socialization is a big part of what almost all of our consumers are looking for. For many of them, they've become isolated from their friends, their peer group, and they're now needing to find new avenues for socialization and recreation. Our peer support and SCE do a lot of work helping our consumers re-engage in socialization and redefining what their goals are for socialization and recreation. Health and wellness is part of it all. Smoking cessation, weight gain, exercise, nutrition. Hopefully this exercise program will help with that as well. So I'm going to briefly run through a case of one of our consumers that came in May. It's a 22-year-old male, was referred to us from early intervention and support services. He was a senior in college at that time. His treatment initiated with him going to the emergency room following symptoms of paranoia, auditory hallucinations, and he thought his mother was an imposter. It was an acute onset, no prior mental health history or treatment. He did use marijuana through high school and college years. At the time of his intake in May, he had blunted affect, paranoid delusions, and was actively hallucinating. He was barely attending classes. He was isolated. He dropped out of his internship, he was fearful, and he moved back home with his family. Amazingly, he still graduated, cum laude, in May. Unfortunately, he was too paranoid to attend his commencement, but on a side note, our peer support has worked with him, and he has contacted his school, and he will be walking in May at commencement. So initially, Jay and his family actively engaged in treatment. They really jumped right on board, were responsive and receptive to the manualized treatment. His sister was living out of state at the time. She was an integral support for him. She moved back home with the family in July and was home for the summer, and that role really helped a lot. She was right on board supporting him, helping him back with socialization, and she was a key, I think, support system for him. Jay was responsive in individual therapy, focusing on dealing with his negative feelings, specifically his anxiety symptoms. He was fearful to leave the house. He was paranoid that neighbors were watching him, that they could hear his thoughts. He was very isolated. His family, his parents didn't know how to communicate with him when he was symptomatic. So their initial sessions really focused on helping them communicate with him when he was hallucinating, when he was struggling with his delusions. Peer support focused with him on wellness and socialization. He was actively an exercise buff, and he had not been going to the gym because he felt too paranoid to go. Our peer went with him a couple times, got him back on track, supported him, and he goes by himself now 2 to 3 times a week. Our SEE is working with him now, searching for employment, and that's working very well. So Jay has re-engaged in the community. He goes to movies by himself. He takes the train into the city with his sister. He was recently at a football game. He's really back on track, engaging in his life, which is wonderful. And that's our contact information. Thank you.
I'm Chris Bracey. This is James Castorina. We're from Oaks Integrated. We just want to go over a little bit today about some of the referrals we get, where we get them from, what counties we serve, and then James is going to talk a little bit about peer support and an individual that they've worked with as a team. Okay. Right now we have 30 active census. We're allowed, I think through the state, 35, so we have 30 right now. Total referrals since November, we've had 81 referrals. We've discharged 17, and when we say discharge for various reasons, maybe they needed further care in another program, maybe an outpatient program, maybe we lost contact with them, possibly they didn't meet the diagnosis after being reviewed by the APN. So there's been several reasons why people are discharged. Our outreach, James really set I came on in August after many years on an inpatient setting, and so James really set the footwork for that. But right now we're doing a lot of outreach to crisis screening, inpatient units, NAMI high schools, which mostly child study teams, colleges, universities, religious organizations. We can go further, trying to think of some of the other places, Division of Oak Rehab, partial programs, IOPs, intensive outpatient programs. So a variety of different places. I think recently, mostly we've had a lot from inpatient units that we've gotten referrals from. They've completed their treatment, and just to let you know, it is a program within itself. So in other words, they cannot have any other services such as a partial IOP. It has to be just our program. So, and we do everything. We have 6 people on staff, and APN comes in once a week, and we have an outreach person, and also a recovery person, and an employment person, also and a peer specialist. So the county served: Atlantic, Cape May, Cumberland, Camden, Gloucester, Salem, and Burlington. I'd say the majority that since I've been here have been your 2 biggest counties, probably Camden and Burlington, but we get referrals from all counties. Some some of the positive and negative things since I worked there, the travel, as you can see, if anybody lives in that area, going down to Burlington, down to Cape May County, it's a lot of traveling that we do to see people in the homes, and so we meet the person where they're at. If they're at home, we'll drive to Cape May, we'll drive to Burlington. We're located in Cherry Hill in Camden County. So those are some of the little bit of obstacles, because we only have 6 on staff, so it's a lot of work with a lot of territory to cover. Although obviously some of the counties are not as populated, like Salem. I think Salem is probably the lowest populated in the state, I believe. But we do get referrals from all those counties. So James is going to talk a little bit about a peer specialist right now, and an individual that we work with.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It is I gotta say, it's been a pleasure coming here again today to see so many familiar faces. As Chris mentioned, I did quite a few NAMI presentations. I think the only county I did not go to was Atlantic and Cape May, because they're obviously the joint affiliate. So it is wonderful seeing everybody again today. I just wanted to highlight, before I get into a little bit about the peer support, the importance of the integrated care that Dr. Silverstein actually had highlighted. We actually had a young man that was referred to us back in April. And I had my last session with him yesterday, actually, so this was perfect timing. When he was initially referred to us, he was having serious paranoia, delusional thought processes, hearing voices. He believed that his neighbors were after him. He ended up attacking his father, because he thought his father was in on this conspiracy. He moved up here not too long ago from Honduras. So that in itself presented a little bit of a barrier, because he actually did not speak any English. So that was actually very interesting to work with. And when we first saw him, he was actually in the hospital, and he was actually hospitalized 3 times over the course of 1 month. My first 3 meetings with this individual were actually all in the hospital, at 3 different hospitals. So to talk about a challenge, this young man had just started having his symptoms. When he was referred to us, they caught it within literally the first week. So we're talking right as it happened. As soon as he got out of the hospital, we got him on medication. He took the medication as prescribed. He started working with me. He was working with our support and employment specialist, or education specialist, as well as our peer specialist. And this young man did not leave his house for 2 months. After 2 months, he started going to the store. He started working with our education specialist, who took him to his local family success center. And he was enrolled in English classes, actually. And next thing you know, he's working with his brother and his father in Camden. And he started working, he worked a couple different jobs. He was working close to 50 hours a week. And he was still making time for his appointments. And to say the least, this young man now, he completed the class. He is actually about to be transferred down to one of the race programs down in Baltimore. That's where he's moving with his family. And yesterday I was telling him, I said, you know what, I'm going to be telling your story tomorrow. And he just smiled. And I said to him, you were able to reach your goals. He did. He was able, and I won't forget the one day when he said, James, I think these were hallucinations. And I looked at him and said, that's what I've been trying to get you to realize for the last 3 months. But it was almost like a light bulb went off, and he was able to manage the symptoms, and he was able to work through it. So I just want to highlight the success of a program like this, and the fact that he still wants to engage in treatment, even moving to another state. So as for the aspect of the program that we're going to be highlighting is the peer support, which is actually rather unique to New Jersey, because I know that it's not always a necessary component in other race programs across the country. However, New Jersey, which I'm very happy about, actually incorporated it into their program. The peer support is actually someone that has been certified through the state, that has experienced their own mental health diagnosis, had to do over 1,000 hours as part of an internship, volunteering, and had to be certified. With that being said, our peer specialist primarily works with, and I think Alyson may have alluded to this, was trying to help the individual socialize, helping them develop coping strategies, helping them develop wellness tools, recovery strategies, and helping them to prevent future relapse. Which I know with our peer specialist, she'll take our individuals out for walks. She'll take them to the movies sometimes as a little treat, and will sometimes, she'll take them out to support groups, Starbucks, you name it. So it's kind of nice that we have that, right, just even for the leisure, because it is. Fun is part of recovery. And she also helps them with the Mental Health Advanced Directive, RAP training, IMR, which RAP is Wellness Recovery Action Plan, and just really trying to help these individuals succeed in their recovery. And just, it always helps to have somebody that's been there before. So, and if you want to take your phone out and take a picture of it, just make sure it's not on selfie mode. That's all I ask. If you want to make sure that we have our contact information, either one of us can be reached. Chris is our new recruitment specialist. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Alyson Sampath. I'm the clinical manager and team leader of the Northern Region program at CarePlus. And this is Jenna Paparosi. She's our outreach and referral specialist at CarePlus as well. And she's also one of our primary clinicians. So I know that the criteria and some of the program background were explained, so these are just some of our marketing materials that I'm gonna just skip over. So in the Northern Region, we service Bergen, Essex, Hudson, Hunterdon, Morris, Passaic, Sussex, Union, and Warren counties. We have 4 locations, 2 primarily that we work out of in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey, and in Paramus, New Jersey. Our contact number is up here as well. Our team is comprised of a team leader, which is myself. We have a recovery coach, which is essentially our primary therapist, clinician on the team. We also have a supported employment and education specialist, an outreach and referral specialist, which is Jenna. We have a peer recovery specialist, and we have a prescriber.
I'm going to go over a little bit about the referral process. It's very simple. It could be done over the phone or out in the community. It takes about 20 minutes, and an individual can refer themselves by calling us. Their family can refer them. We can get referrals from social workers at hospitals, screening centers, other providers. We do a lot of outreach at schools, talking with school-based clinicians, and they can also refer to us. We've had a lot of referrals from NAMI and the mental health associations. And veterans organizations as well. We have outreach to homeless shelters, and we have had some referrals from them. So it's a very simple process. Anyone can call us, and it determines their eligibility for the program. And from there, we schedule them with the psychiatrist to do a psychiatric evaluation, where they receive a diagnosis, and then they can meet the team at the intake assessment, and then really determine who they want to work with from there.
So some of our program outcomes and our progress to date. Our current caseload is 30 active clients. We've received about 75 referrals to date, with a total of about 6 discharges for various reasons. Some were successful discharges from the program, some were lost to contact, some clients had moved. We did have 1 client be readmitted to the program. We've had about 12 clients secure some type of competitive employment during the last year. 9 clients have enrolled in school, whether that's high school or a 2 to 4 year college, and we have 1 client pursuing their GED. We've had a total of 4 emergency room visits since enrollment, and I believe it's 6 inpatient psychiatric hospitalizations. Our entire caseload, with the exception of 1 client, has been in agreement with being prescribed and self-administering medication. About 65% of our caseload is working with the supported employment and education services, as well as the peer specialist. Our current age range, we have clients anywhere from 15 to 31 at this moment, but we can service up to age 35. We have 3 clients that are under the age of 18. We have a 15 and 2 16-year-olds. The area of focus that we are going to be highlighting today is the supported employment and education services. These services are really evidence-based, just like the program itself. We implement the IPS model, which is the individual placement and support model. This is used for people who have been diagnosed with some type of chronic psychiatric disorder in helping them return to work or school. It's very helpful with this particular population due to first episode psychosis, particularly occurring during these instrumental years of educational and vocational development. We use a shared decision-making model with the entire team, which is the client, the team of staff, and the families or caregivers in making decisions and treatment goals about education and school. We really highlight their individual goals, preferences, their work and education history, strengths, experiences, and their desires, and we include the family in this as well. Some of the activities that we focus on with supported employment and education can be anywhere from job development to resume building, completing applications for jobs, interview skills, working on money management and setting financial goals, managing symptoms and coping skills while on a job, managing disclosure and communication with employers. The supported employment and education specialist can really be as involved or as hands-off as the client wishes. We've had clients in which the supported employment and education specialist will visit the job site, will provide that level of intervention, and then we have clients who really choose not to have the disclosure at work. We also provide the supported education services. So we're really, the goal is to really help people return to or continue in whatever level of school that they're in. So whether that is the GED level to high school to 2 to 4 year colleges, we have a broad range on our caseload currently. We've helped people with accommodations with IEPs, 504 plans, different student support services on college campuses. We've worked with school-based clinicians in some of the high schools. We've helped people with financial aid and school applications for college, and definitely coordinating meetings and regular contact with school providers. The Cs, as well as our peer specialists in integrating care, can really help with some practical assistance when it comes to supported education as well, whether that's taking somebody to the store to buy school supplies or textbooks, some help with transportation to the campus, a walk around campus to tour the school. There's a lot of flexibility in the services that we can provide with this. And then again with integration, the Cs as well as one of our clinicians really work together to help with those coping skills and social skills that are necessary in providing this service. So in highlighting some case examples and interventions that we've been working with the supported employment and education services, we've had clients who have expressed ambivalence and disinterest in pursuing work or school. These are real teachable moments in kind of highlighting long-term goals for clients who may be unmotivated currently to go back to school or continue in school, and really focus on what do they want to be doing 3 or 5 years down the line. We really attempt to uncover the reason for the ambivalence and the disinterest. What do clients want to be doing and what are their goals? We've also worked to help clients manage disclosure in work or school. In experiencing a first episode psychosis, some of our clients really may be ambivalent in disclosing their diagnosis or the fact that they're in treatment. So we really work with people where they're at. If they're interested in disclosing, we've had our supported employment and education specialist be able to communicate with school personnel and with supervisors at jobs. Other clients are really uninterested in having that level of intervention. We have several clients that are enrolled in school or currently working who are managing symptoms, substance use, or side effects of medications. This is really where the C services as well as the integration of the rest of the team comes into play, where the psychiatrist, the clinician, the Cs, and the peer specialist really come together to come up with a plan, whether it's medication-based, maybe there needs to be a med change in order to help the person succeed, or development of coping skills. So this is really where the team integration comes in. We do a lot of advocacy with clients for accommodations and resources in school, as I previously explained in the last slide. Another case example is a client that wishes to apply or is currently receiving Social Security benefits. We really use this as a short-term plan with clients in having them really the goal to secure competitive employment and use SSI as a short-term plan. some of the client's stated goals and the family members are not aligned. We're commonly finding this with some of our cases. And that's where some of the integration comes into play with the C's, with the family integration, the family groups, and the primary clinician as well. Some of our families express interest in wanting the client to pursue school or work right away, despite significant levels of symptoms. Again, this is where integration comes in with the family work as well as the client on an individual level.
I'm going to highlight a client that I've been working with since June really quick. He came to us after being hospitalized, and prior to that he was homeless due to having altercations at home with his parents. And while he was at the shelter, he was experiencing very heightened symptoms, delusional thinking, very loud command hallucinations. And then he started coming to us, and he was meeting with our psychiatrist and open to taking medication, starting him on a low dose and kind of working up to get him to that therapeutic level. And we've been working together with managing stress, which has also really helped his symptoms, because now he's able to identify the triggers, especially when he is at home, because that's where they have been most severe. Now that he is working, he recently acquired a new job and he really likes it. So he's been spending a lot of time there, and it has helped with his socialization skills and his symptom management. There is some cannabis use still, which we are still working on motivational interviewing, and a lot of seeing what he would like to do in the future. He has a lot of plans financially, and he would like to get out of the house. So working with him has been going fairly well, and it attests to how well this program works, because it gets people back into their lives and helps propel them forward.